Losing Lionel Messi wasn't punishment enough for Barcelona, because not only were they lucky with loan moves for Cancelo and Joao Felix, but when they had some money available, they spent it on a teenage player while they were stuck with a contract for another teenage player who was out on loan. The new Barcelona is like night and day from a team that used to attract and sign top talent like Henry, Villa, Zlatan, and now that Xavi is being forced to work with teenagers, could that be the reason for him quitting at the end of the season? In this video, I discuss how Barcelona lost Lionel Messi because of spending too much money on teens and unproven talent, and if they don't change their approach, their situation also won't change anytime soon, because 60 million for Roque is insanity. By the way, didn't they learn something from the fall off by Bojan? Also, I speak on the CIES list and its horrible reflection of the transfer market, which has Mbappe rated lower than Martinelli and Bukayo Saka, who is worth twice as much as Mbappe. Before I jump into that, quick question: could Barcelona be the next Nottingham Forest, another great team that fell off so hard that it never recovered? Because ever since August 2021, when Lionel Messi was swimming in tears, nothing has been positive for this team, and all Barcelona said is that they couldn't keep paying him, which has zero accountability, because we all know Barcelona is one of the most sponsored teams in the world. Since 2011, when Qatar Foundation was giving Barcelona 30 million a year, then in 2017 Recruitment came with 55 million a year, and that's while Messi was still around, since he left in 2021. Mind you, before 2011, Barcelona was not receiving jersey sponsorship money at all. Instead, they were donating 2 million a year to UNICEF, a non-profit organization who was the club's main sponsor in the league. So clearly money was making its way into the vault. But what Barcelona is guilty of was spending money irresponsibly, which is how they got in trouble with the salary limit in the La Liga. Hence, they started asking players to take salary cuts. But before I expose how the salary limit evicted Lionel Messi, let me give some context on how the team got into this bad situation in the first place, and it dates all the way into the 2015-2016 season when Messi got an MCL injury which kept him on the sidelines for 2 months, and in his absence Neymar went on a tear, scoring 11 goals and assisting 6 times in 9 games. Pretty much he was playing better without Messi. Now fast forward to 2017 Ballon d'Or awards. Neymar would finish third, with Messi finishing above him once again. Now it was clear for everybody to see that for Neymar to win the Ballon d'Or, like the other Brazilian greats, he had to find his own castle, or let's just say the castle came looking for him, because not long after that Barcelona a lot more richer. But what most people don't realize is that losing 1/3 of MSN meant something more tragic for the Barcelona executive, because they were not just losing a top 3 player, but they were losing the gamble they had in place to keep Messi at the club. After all, they signed Messi to a contract worth 555 million for 4 years in November 2017. A contract so big they were desperate to keep winning, and it said Barcelona had to pull out the brown envelope a few times on the hush-hush, clearly out of desperation to accumulate wins. Hence, they knew the salary limit was waiting to kick their behinds in. What's the salary limit, you might ask? It's an annual or seasonal budget that teams in La Liga have in place to make sure clubs are not indulging into unnecessary debt. To calculate the salary limit of a single club, 2 things are important: the money flowing in versus the money going out. For the incoming cash flow, revenue from winning titles, player sales, merchandise, and a regulated amount from sponsorships is important. For the outgoing cash flow, existing debt, academy overheads and salary payrolls, and also player purchases are considered. Both categories are taken into consideration before a team salary limit is decided. Now, this is important. A team can get sponsored by millions of dollars, but if the salary cap says they can only spend 500k for that season, then they have to sit on those millions. The most organic way to increase their salary limit is via winning titles, with the La Liga title having a prize money of 60 million for first place, the Champions League, which has 84 million for the winners, and the winners of the Copa del Rey receive 2 million. Now, in the 4th season that Neymar spent playing for Barcelona, they lifted the league title twice, won the UEFA Champions League once, and took the Copa del Rey 3 times. And when Neymar left for Barcelona, it was exactly 4 seasons before Messi split from Barcelona. They again lifted the league title twice, but instead of 3 times, they won the Copa del Rey only twice, never won the Champions League again, meaning the competition prize money would have dropped when Neymar left the club. But when it came to transfers, it's a different tale. But for the sake of time, I'll just focus on cash that is over 30 million. Now, they bought Neymar for 57 million and spent 81 million on Suarez, and also they spent 32 million on Paco Alcacer and 55 million on Andre Gomez, which was okay since they were winning more titles than ever and they were spending within their means. But after Neymar left, they spent money more aggressively on teenagers and players without international acclaim. Coutinho and Griezmann were relatively forgivable since they were experienced players with proven records. Also, the cash they received for Neymar would cancel the money that they spent on these 2 players. But in this case, I just want to focus on these young players. As you can see, so much money was spent on players that were under the age of 23, whereas football players truly peak at the age of 26. And these players they acquired didn't result to more titles for the team. On top of that, Barcelona also gave Messi the 555 million extension for 4 years. With so much bad moves, the salary limit had no choice but to send Messi packing, and it's all on Barcelona to blame. They also tried to ask players to take pay cuts, and some of them have done so, but fast forward to today, Messi left and also the players who were on major contracts also left. Then why is Barcelona still facing financial issues? The answer is in the recruiting, which I think is the reason why Xavi is quitting by the end of the season. You see, Barcelona was known for its development players, whether it's Messi, Xavi, Iniesta, Busquets, Pedro, and recently Yamal. They always had La Masia as the best academy internationally, and back then they only opened the checkbook when they spotted a prime player who was able to immediately contribute towards a team's success. But ever since they bought Neymar, they have been and are still obsessed with trying to uncover the next top talent. But one thing they ignore is that Neymar was already the best player for his team, whether it's on international or club level, before he made his way to Barcelona. But because Neymar was young and effective at a young age, now Barcelona became obsessed with teenagers, which has led to players that are underdeveloped and not in their prime to be bought for record fees. And all this subculture has taken football by storm. Therefore, now please allow me to introduce CIES Football Observatory, a sport data company that compiles the list of the most expensive young players in the world based on age, contracts, and most importantly, potential. They make these lists and present them to the public annually, and recently they released the 2024 list of the most expensive players. Now, after taking a look at this list, I just want to ask one question. Let's say there is a Champions League final tomorrow and your team's financial issues for the future depends on this final in order to get a better salary limit. Now on the comments below, can you tell me how many players on this list you would pick before you went for Mbappe to play for your team on this final? If you picked more than 5 players, then your team would also be facing financial issues. Basically, Barcelona has turned into a team that would buy a Martinelli before Mbappe, which is the logic that has been holding Barcelona back. This list is what's wrong with football currently. Even players such as Son and Mo Salah are not included on this list. Players that can immediately contribute towards titles. I'm talking about players that have been consistent at the high level for so long and have a proven record. But in today's game, most teams ignore battle-tested players. They rather buy an 18-year-old who will challenge for the title in 10 years into the future, which is not urgent or pro results. And in football, results drive success, which is one of the reasons Barcelona has been financially struggling, and it's linked to them not taking winning seriously. Therefore, Joao Felix being the latest player to take 7,700 a week from 280 a week he was getting at Chelsea while on loan from Atletico Madrid is embarrassing. A player who is currently one of the key players at Barcelona is still not tied on a permanent basis with Barcelona. Instead, they spent that 60 million on Roque, and I'll provide his career stats shortly. But I'm sorry to say this, but the new direction which Barcelona has taken is in line with the downfall of Nottingham Forest, because Nottingham Forest has won a Champions League title not once as a fluke, but they won their titles back to back. The team had a strong head start in Europe, but journalists have said the fall was caused by bad decisions from executives, which negatively impacted the team's brief dominance at winning, and they found themselves in the lower leagues for a long time. And it's only now that they came back to the Premiership, and they are still struggling, by the way. A team with so many years ahead, they lost everything, and the team had to rebuild from the ground again. But that does not mean it will happen to Barcelona, but the club asking players to take pay cuts while spending 1.5 billion to upgrade the Camp Nou stadium and spending millions on teenagers. That just means football performances have taken a backseat to the list of priorities at the club, and it's kind of embarrassing when you take into account that they got hammered by Bayern Munich 8-2 in the Champions League and ended up playing in the Europa League. Even someone like Gundogan, who left a treble winning Manchester City for Barcelona, has found it uninspiring at Barcelona. Marvin Hagler, a boxing legend, once said it's hard for men to wake up at 5 a.m. in the morning for a beach run when they are sleeping on silk sheets. But today's youth doesn't just only have luxuries as a distraction. Social media, amongst other things, and being given huge contracts at a young age is not a good recipe for success, which brings me to the most talked about teenager in 2019. But fast forward to 2024, the same player has been playing out on loan after Barcelona gave him the 1 billion release clause and a salary of 200,000 a week. But what worries me is that Barcelona seem to be committed on binding teenagers to huge contracts, which is unlike the old Barcelona, who was committed to a player because they deserved it and not because of how much potential they have. For an example, imagine how much Barcelona would put as a release clause for a 16-year-old Bojan, who was seen as the club's future. Nobody would have seen his downfall the way he was playing during his time at Barcelona. Bojan, Roque and Ansu Fati have played a similar sample size in games and minutes at the age of 16 years old, with Bojan having a bigger return in goals. But we know what happened with Bojan after his first season at Barcelona. He went out on loan and never recaptured the same form. Also, the same can be said about Ansu, who is currently warming the bench for Brighton. Now, I can't tell you that the same will happen with Roque, but judging from his first few games playing for Barcelona, he hasn't been a focal point for Barcelona, which is a red flag for a 16 million investment. Because when you're chasing titles, everything needs to add up. When your conditions change to unfavorable, also your standards need to change to a higher level of urgency. And in order for Barcelona to reclaim its glory days, I think they need to ask themselves, how did they do things in the past? Which I think the answer is in the La Masia Academy, not buying teenagers. Barcelona need to just focus on buying players that can contribute as soon as they walk into the team. If a player can't contribute immediately, then they don't need such a player. Now, to shift things to you, the viewer, if you were playing a Champions League final tomorrow, who would you pick as the first 3 purchases from this year's CIS list? I'll pin the best comment below. Until next time, peace.